Why marketing? What appealed to you about it?
Marketing is very difficult in the fact that one thing can change everything. There was a sense of pride about beating someone else in the marketing world with an ad. It's like, my ad's better than yours and I won.
If you do that in Houston, your budget's going to be gone by 9 a.m. Having a good website is always a good thing. It's really just a place for people to land after they've learned about you.
You have more time than money when you start. And you need to start interacting in Facebook groups. You need to start putting out yard signs, door hangers, text everyone you know. Go through your phone, go through your Facebook contacts, post on your Facebook page, text people you know. There's so much you can do when you first get started.
Word of mouth and repeat customers are going to be your lifeblood. We've created the third, but you have two things, right? Either the big franchise or you have the mom and pop in the local market.
We are live and welcome back to another episode of Marketing Without Rules, the show where we celebrate people who exemplify the hunter mindset. They make moves, they color outside the lines, and they have found creative ways to channel the attention of their community into currency. This show is sponsored by Blue Crocus Solutions, a web design and SEO agency focused on helping home service companies. I am your host, Vandervalk, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Chris Chisholm. Chris started a junk removal company as a part-time job when he was a fireman, and he eventually did an acquisition deal with Fire Dogs and is now the marketing director for Allied Junk Partners. Allied Junk Partners owns Fire Dogs, Joseph's Junk Removal, Lugaway, and Junk Bear. So Chris is a busy man. Welcome to the show, Chris. Excited to chat with you.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to diving into a few things here. I realized I didn't verify your name. Did I get your last name right there?
Yeah.
Killer. Awesome. I just went with it and figured I'd ask after. But give people a little bit of a background on you. I did there in the bio a little bit, which you had given me. I peeked a little bit at your socials and a little bit of the story there. But interesting journey. And I'm curious, how that all unfolded for you. And obviously marketing is a thing that you aspire to and have been doing because it's, now your role in a much bigger sense. So give us a little bit of the history there and then we'll dive into where the conversation goes.
Yeah, for sure. So everybody's got an origin story, right? I was a veteran. I am a veteran. Came out of the military. I did some other things, and then I got to the fire service, where I had always wanted to be, but I got there eventually. And in the fire service, everyone has a second job. Most guys go work part-time firefighter jobs. Other guys work, all different kinds of stuff. So I never wanted to work a part-time fire job just because I loved being a fireman. I didn't want to eventually hate it because I was gone all the time.
Just burning out on fire.
Yeah, just burning out. I've got 5 kids and a wife, and being 48 hours at a time like that. It's hard on a family. So I didn't want to get another job where I had to be gone for another 24 hours or whatever it may be. So I was watching this show called Blue Collar Millionaires. It only aired for one season. It was a really cool show. And on the show, they had 1-800-GOT-JUNK on there. And at the end of it, it said like what 1-800-GOT-JUNK is going to gross for the year. And I was like, it blew my mind. I never even knew it. Junk removal existed, right? So I started doing a little research and wow, this is really a thing. Coming from Texas, any young guy in his 20s probably has a pickup truck, young teens anyways. So I called up, I figured I need the hardest working person that I know. So I called up my buddy and I was like, hey, you want to start a business? He was like, yeah. I was like, okay. And that's where it started. So we started with, using the lead generation services like most people do, the Home Advisor, the Thumbtacks of the world, all that stuff. And we started and we just kept going, lovingly. I had no clue how to run a business. I had no clue how to market. I had no clue how to charge. I lovingly referred to it as just too dumb to quit,
I've said that myself.
Yeah. Just, I would rather burn this thing to the ground than give up. And so we just kept going, and one thing led to another, and he wanted to go do something else, and I wanted to stick with it. I bought him out, stuck with the company, and then after I think I was 7 years in and almost 10 years in the fire department.
So were you still doing fire, basically the job there and the junk removal on top of it?
Yeah. So I worked at the firehouse 2 days, and then the other 5 days I was doing junk removal. So.
And how many kids did you have through this process? Because 5 kids is insane.
No way.
All 5.
No way. You
at that time, we had a massive hurricane in Houston called Hurricane Harvey, which destroyed my house. I mean, me and my wife talk about this all the time. I'm like, I have no idea how I kept this thing alive through some of those times. And we had a baby that we had her in daycare 2 days a week, and I was watching her most of the other time. Like, I can't tell you how many jobs I've taken her to.
Wow.
So yeah, we somehow we kept it alive and kept going. And then I hired the CEO of Fire Dogs to be a business coach to me. We eventually wound up doing an acquisition deal. I left the fire department, came on, started Fire Dogs Houston. We changed the brand name here.
Because you were 4 Alarm before that, right?
Right.
Yep.
So
Cool.
4 Alarm.
You changed the name, kept a lot of the infrastructure and team, probably merged it under the Fire Dogs brand, etc.
Right. Exactly.
Cool.
And then I became Fire Dogs, and then we took a different route. We're private.
What made you make that switch? I've chatted with Joseph before, but I'm always curious because Bennett obviously runs a solid enterprise there, and you're now part of it. But what made you what appealed to you about that?
I was at a little bit of a crossroads with both of those careers, I should say. In the fire service, I was on the verge of promotion, and the business was also at the best it's ever done. So yeah. I was at a crossroads in deciding which route I was going to go because I couldn't continue to do both. It was getting too much. And I would have been promoted into an officer position within the fire service. And at that position, the responsibility becomes a little bit higher, and kind of officer that I would wanted to be would not be conducive to, spending hours at the firehouse working on my business outside of it. Yeah. So I had to make a decision, and I got approached at the right time, basically is what it boils down to. And I decided it was a good route. We do well. Me and my wife, we do well. So it was one of those things. It's like, we've taken a bunch of chances this far. Like, this is a pretty good mark. Yeah. Let's one more. Let's go. Let's see what happens.
Life's funny like that, isn't it? It comes down to timing. I'm in the middle of a really cool timing thing, business-wise and family-wise. And it's just kind of looking at it. It's like, man, like none of these pieces would fall together if the other pieces hadn't fallen together. And right. It's just neat that way. So are you still running the Fire Dogs Houston and marketing director for Fire Dogs or for Allied Dog Partners? No.
So I had a guy that was with me for a long time. And I knew that I always knew that he was capable of running his own location. And when the marketing position became available, he was also available to run the Houston location. And so it just seamlessly worked out that I could transition out of that. And I don't go up there anymore. Obviously, he calls me a lot just because we were together for so long. He'll call and ask questions and whatnot, and answering those questions as a friend. But I don't have any say so over. I don't have any control on the day-to-day operations of that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So that segues into you got the call, the operations or the marketing position opened up. Why marketing? What appealed to you about it?
Marketing is very difficult in the fact that one thing can change everything, right? Like one small change can change a lot at a small time. And you have no idea when that's going to be, what that's going to be. And I always dug it. I always did my own Google ads. And it wasn't because it was a pain. It was because I kind of enjoyed it. I don't know why. There was a sense of pride about beating someone else in the marketing world with an ad. It's like, my ad's better than yours and I won. It was a little bit of an egotistical thing. And I always enjoyed that. And so I always check my stats and, what my impression share is and all that kind of stuff. And I really enjoyed it. And Houston is massive, right? It's such a big place.
Huge. Yeah.
Right. And, Indianapolis, where Fire Dogs headquarters is a bigger city, but it's not as big as Houston. And so you couldn't market the same way in Houston as you can in some of the other locations, right? Where you can draw a radius map and drop it and like you're rocking and rolling.
You're going to catch some fish.
Yeah. You're going to catch some fish. If you do that in Houston, your budget's going to be gone by 9 a.m. Just because there's so many more people. It's easier. So long story short, I kept a pretty strong finger on the Houston marketing. And, so when it became available, I was the best fit at the time for the spot.
Awesome. You've been busy. I see the guitar behind you. Appreciate your service as a veteran as well. How do you balance all of that? I'm going to take a little side tangent here. How do you find time to play your guitar? Unless it's just an ornament like mine over there in the office is.
That I find time when I get super stressed out and I'm like, I got to go to a different place for a minute. Music's my outlet. I love music.
I love it. Top 2 favorite songs to play.
Favorite songs to play. Have you ever heard of Shane Smith and the Saints?
I haven't, but I'll have to now.
Well, I'll send you some good. So Texas has kind of its own little music scene. Austin's kind of a hub for music songwriters. So a lot of the music that I know you'll never hear on the radio. I love country.
That's the best kind of music.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I turn a song on in the car, my wife's like, who is that? She has no idea, right? And I turned my kids into music junkies.
That's awesome. How old are your kids now?
19, 18, 17. 17, 16, and 9.
No, you guys did it fast. So we did, ours are much younger. We did something similar with the timing. We've got 5, 4, almost 3, and 1.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
it's not 5, but 4 is a little bit of a circus as well.
Yeah, it's a blast. We just, I've been stressing for years. I had 4 kids back to back, or a year.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And so they were all turning 16, at separate, a year apart. And so we just finally got our 4th vehicle. He turned 16 4 days ago. So he got his truck, and I've been stressing about that for years, but we got them all. They're all
Timing of it.
complete, I should say.
Now it's college tuition and all that fun stuff to come.
Yeah. Yeah. So my oldest one, she's at the University of Arkansas. So she's doing great. My son that's graduating, he's 18. He's going to be going into trades. Doesn't want to go to college. So.
Awesome. We need more tradespeople. It's become quite a problem, actually. The blue collar, the pipeline of people heading into blue collar is rapidly diminishing, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's creating an imbalance, which is supply and demand. And I told my son, I was like, you do this, the demand is always going to be there because the supply is diminishing and you're going to be in high.
He's in like a gap, right? Because all the older tradespeople are going out and retiring, and now there's like this gap in the middle, and he's going to start filling that. So he can demand higher wages. You can make a really good living in the trades. Actually, people don't realize that.
Yeah, I was just my daughter's up in Fayetteville, and I was looking at the city jobs up there and whatnot. Just I'm always perusing. And I was looking on the website, and the starting pay for an electrician for the city of Fayetteville was $97,000 a year. And I was like, well, what? And that's not a very high income area or anything like that. I mean, it's not like, that and, maybe some other parts of the country is really not that much money, or whereas Fayetteville, it's a really good living. I sent that to him, and I was like, here's an option.
Yeah, I love it. So let's dig into marketing. The show is Marketing Without Rules. Appreciate you laying out the origin story there, and sharing some music. If you were to start all over again with your junk removal business, what would you hit for marketing?
If I could start all over, one of the things I would do is having a good website is always a good thing. But I think we put too much emphasis into our websites as if it's going to be this holy grail. And it's not. It's really just a place for people to land after they've learned about you. Mm-hmm. And
especially at the beginning, really, especially
at the beginning. Yeah. Especially at the beginning. Like once you get down the road, there's more into SEO and creating blogs and, all these different features that you should be doing that outrun that initial thing. But getting a good website built, a lot of people will skimp and go for the very cheap route, and it always winds up costing more in the long run. But getting a good website, and then really the boots on the ground, getting the yard signs and the door hangers and talking to people, stopping in, like those are all the things that are very low cost, especially when you're starting, that will change the landscape for you if you use them
completely. Yeah. You have more time than money when you start.
Right.
I talk to people all the time, and they're like, I want to hire you for ads. And I'm like, no, you don't. That's suicide right now. You don't have the money to support that. You don't have the jobs and the cash flow to support that. You need to come in and you need to start interacting in Facebook groups. You need to start putting out yard signs, door hangers, text everyone you know. I think this is a thing I got from Grant Cardone back with his, I don't remember which book, probably 10X. Go through your phone, go through your Facebook contacts, post on your Facebook page, and text people There's so much you can do when you first get started that doesn't cost anything.
Yeah. Email marketing is a really easy thing to do. I don't know how much of this is legal, but you can scavenge emails off the internet all day long, and find those and you're just trying to create awareness. You may send out 5,000 emails and get 0 return emails, but you're going to remind somebody that you exist, and that might turn to fruition in 2 months from now. But a lot of people want immediate results, and so they want to do the things that create immediate results, and that's
at what cost?
And those are the things that are most costly. Because, I mean, as we all know, Google's got a stranglehold on the search market. They do. But
talk about email. Get tactical on that for a bit. So you mentioned that briefly. Cold email is alive and well. So SMS, you can get into some interesting ones. You definitely want people to have opted in. Mm-hmm. But email, get tactical there if you can for the listeners on what are you scraping, who are you scraping, what types of businesses, and how do you approach them?
Yeah, I think one of the first things to remember is that word of mouth and repeat customers are going to be your lifeblood. At some point, they're going to be the lifeline of the business. And so you have to, from day one,
start extracting information from people. Right. I've got a lady here in Houston that she uses us probably every 2 weeks for like the last 6 years.
Wow.
And it's not big jobs or anything. We haul our Amazon boxes off. That's literally it. But she's so vital to our business, and not in a monetary sense, but just when I see her name up there, I just get happy. I'm like, oh yeah, it's very good.
We're doing something right. She's coming back. The lifetime value of that, I mean, that's awesome.
It's huge, right? So start scraping that information almost immediately. And then you start creating a system that is a reminder constantly. Email still is a huge return. When we send out an email every Thursday morning at 9 a.m., and that email goes out, and it's nothing more than a picture with a couple words and a call to action. That's it. That is literally the gist of the email. Yeah. However, our second highest call time, besides Monday is always the highest just because it's a natural demand cycle, but it's
everyone catching up from the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So Thursday mornings between 9 and noon is our second highest call time. But no one returns those emails. And it's not because that they're malicious or anything, but it's just a constant reminder over and over and over. All right. And most people, I think one of the things to remember is you're like, well, I want to know how much it's returning me. Well, that's going to be very, very hard to do, because you're going to get people who are going to, they're going to see something with your name on it, yard sign. Let's say that. They see a yard sign, and then they Google you, and then they call you, and you'll say, how'd you hear about us? Chances of them saying yard sign is pretty slim. They're going to say Google, right? Yeah. And then, so how do you quantify that? Well, from a 30,000 foot view is the best way to quantify it, right? What did I spend on marketing? What did I make? There's my cost. That's your acquisition cost. Yeah. So getting tactical with the emails is really just boiling down to a reminder that we exist, and get every person's information that you go to. And then you can go on realtor sites, and they have a pretty set structure. Like, Keller Williams is a big one down here, and it's first name dot last name at kdwilliams.com. I mean, right? So then you can go in there and just start pulling those off and put them in a sheet. Realtors, property managers, get on LinkedIn. You can find emails on LinkedIn. My wife's a recruiter, so she taught me how to find people's emails on LinkedIn.
She's headhunting all the time.
Yeah. So she knows how to cold email or cold call people, however you want to say that. But that's really it. It's not a rocket science thing. It's really pretty basic and simple. It's just a reminder. That's all it is.
Yeah. And to really drive the point home, if I can, you put it really simply there, but just to say it with a different person saying it so that people really take this home, it's get your contact info off your clients. I talked to a lot of people and like, oh, they just paid for it. And then I went away and I was like, well, how are you going to contact them again? I can't. I don't have their contact info. Every customer you serve once is a potential second customer. And if you're not collecting that information and, at the very least collecting it, and then now after listening to Chris, you're going to go start emailing them, then you're missing out on money. Thursday is a dead day for most junk removal businesses. Wednesday, Thursday are pretty quiet usually. Friday for us, Friday and Monday were our two busiest days. People getting ramped up for the weekend, and then people realizing they didn't get the project done they wanted to on the weekend. And so you're basically engineering a busy Thursday off of your emails, which is awesome.
That's great. That's exactly why we picked it. Monday's a natural cycle. And then we do social media postings on Tuesday, Thursdays, Wednesdays an email, and then Friday, Saturday, Sundays, other stuff as well. But I mean, it's one of the more simple things that you can do. It doesn't take a long time. You can put some effort into it and make it take a little bit of time, and, create some call to actions and stuff like that. You can create landing pages. You can create all kinds of stuff. But the gist of it is a reminder that we're here.
Just keep going, keep showing up, keep being there when people are opening their email and seeing what's going on. That's the important thing.
You have no idea what that'll turn into.
What's the craziest marketing tactic that you've tried that either flopped or worked really well?
So I did back when it was 4-alarm, I did a campaign, a postcard campaign, 50% off if we're late. And my employees absolutely hated it. They did not like it, but it worked. It did very, very well.
Why did the employees hate it? Because they didn't they couldn't be late now?
It wasn't that they couldn't, it's that it put extra pressure on them to be on time. So I did, the way that I did it though, is I did some staggering. So one truck started at 7 a.m., the other truck started at 9 a.m., and they staggered over each other. So the chances of us being late got slimmer, but it just put extra pressure on them, and I was okay with it.
It worked well though.
It worked. It did well. I mean, we're doing junk removal here. We're not solving the world's problems, but we are solving a person's problems on the daily. And what do people care about the most is their time, right? So I personally, if I hire a company and they don't call me and they're late, I won't use them. Not at all. Like, I'll just tell them, like, oh, better luck next time if you get a call next time. And it's just because my time's super important. It's very valuable to me. So I never want to waste people's time, and I also want to provide at a good value, and that's value. Being on time and being uniformed and sharp and talking, with respect is, if you can accomplish those things, you've got most of them.
They're going to crush it. Call them back, pick up the phone when they call. Those are things that people don't do very well, and it's a dying art for sure. Well, what's another out of the box one there?
Nothing comes to mind. That one was a pretty wild one that we did during the winters a couple years ago. During the winter times up in the north, it gets super slow, and so we would have those guys go out and just clean up the park. Nobody would know about it. Maybe some people would see it or see them on the side of the road, doing stuff like that. But I wouldn't say it was necessarily a marketing tactic, but it was. You know what I mean? It was providing good value for the community and the environment. But at the same time, like, it's more or less trying to showcase people who we are as a company without putting a spotlight on ourselves.
And you're getting some nice parking as well. People driving by, seeing the trucks there. That's a solid strategy. I know several people who park at Walmart, when it's slower. Often they're at a busy intersection. There's a lot of stuff you can do there. Love it. What does your role now involve? Because you've got 4, junk removal companies under the Allied Junk Partners. What does that look like? What are some of the data points that you are really paying attention to? And then what does your job involve?
So data points, budgeting is always up top of the list there. Cost per lead is something we track daily. When it comes to Google ads, always looking at conversions, impression share, where are we in comparison to the other companies? There's a emphasis on branding. We're doing a lot of branding things. So there's emphasis on looking at, what does our search volume look like in terms of branding, which is kind of the route that we're headed this year, is more or less trying to get our brands is what is searched versus trying to beat everyone else to the punch when somebody Googles junk removal, right? That's a very costly way. Yeah, it's a very costly way of doing business. Branding is as well, but like I said, if you can brand, you can provide value, customers will continue to come back over and over and over again, and they'll tell their friends about you.
Well, if you own your brand, there's not only is it cheaper on ads, but it's also, if Google were to ever disappear, you've still got your brand. People are still going to know you, and if they're coming to Google searching for your brand, they already know you. Right. It goes back to owning your audience. Owning your email list of all your past clients. All of that. That's super powerful.
Yeah. So and I keep up with all the brands' social medias, email campaigns, all the Google ads. Yeah, that's kind of where I live daily.
How is it managing 4 different brands? Because I've found it interesting that you've kept the brands, because you bought some awesome companies, or like the Allied Junk Partners acquired some awesome companies who has some great brands. Joseph Junk Removal, you're wearing the hat there. They've got a very distinct, memorable brand in the Atlanta area. How is it managing 4 brands rather than just like really focusing on one brand in 4 different locations?
It's challenging, but it's also we're living in this middle space right now. We've created the third, but you have 2 things, right? You either the big franchise or you have the mom and pop in the local market.
Yeah.
We're kind of trying to fill that big gap where we have the horsepower of a national franchise, but the feel of the local company, right? Joseph is still a local company. It's still the same guy that started it. He's still there. Everything's still the same. However, some of the things in the background are a little bit different. The way that we meet together is different. Our call center is all one call center that answers the brands for several different states.
Yeah.
So, there's that. The marketing, we're more streamlined in the way that we're marketing. It's 4 different emails, but it's basically the same email.
Same email, maybe with different branding, different slight wording or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. The little different wording, due to the nature of where they are, different pictures with different, employees.
Yeah.
Obviously. But it's challenging at times, but for the most part, it's good. It's really interesting to see the different things that work in different locations. Atlanta's got a completely different clientele than Indianapolis does, and Houston has a different clientele than Boston does. So it's very, very different.
Houston and Boston are very different.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
I love it. You mentioned building brand, and you're really focusing on that. What are you doing tactically to do that? Like, what does that actually mean day to day?
So I mean, one of the things that we're starting up is TV in Indianapolis and Atlanta. And it's arguably a branding play entirely, right? So how do you quantify that? How do you look at that and be like, does this make money? Yes or no? And that brings me back to the 10,000 foot view. You have to, you can't, if you think you can extract every customer that saw your ad and apply them to the TV ad bucket and go, oh, well, we had 60 jobs this month that equated, $40,000 and we spent, 20,000. That's a 50% marketing budget. That's terrible. Well, yeah, absolutely. That's terrible. But how many people saw and then Googled and then called you, right? So we're using some landing pages and stuff like that too, and then looking at search volumes.
Are you doing it like targeted TV, or is it just literally cable TV, or is it like Hulu or anything like that?
No, it's cable TV. So we're not doing the streaming TV.
Interesting. And here's another thing to your point about the attribution, right? So Google figured this out a while ago, doing some tests, and they call it the 7-11-4 method, and basically, or the 7-11-4 rule. Basically, before they'll buy, and this is kind of across different industries, but a consumer needs 7 hours engagements across 11 touch points in 4 separate locations. Probably a little less for junk removal because it's not a high ticket purchase, but they're going to see the ad. They're going to maybe see a billboard or a yard sign, or they're going to see you on Facebook. And that's the touches all along there, in different places, in different mediums, adding up to that hours. I've heard some people say up to 21 touches before someone buys. So again, hard to quantify. Oh, it came directly from TV. But if you're, looking at your overall acquisition costs and factoring that in, that's where you can start to steer the ship.
Yeah, sure. Well, to your point, we kind of along the same lines, but we tried to create as many impressions as possible with each job that we do. So every job that we go do, we put a yard sign out. So there's one. And then we put door hangers on 5 houses to the right, 5 houses to the left. So there's 2. And then we drop a series of postcards in a 2-week sequence. So we effectively touch the same person 5 times within a 6-week period. And hopefully
postcards.
Send Jim.
Cool.
So we have a radius bomb that goes out to every job that gets completed.
That is awesome. I don't know many junk removal companies at all. It's very common in roofing. It's very common in power washing. Junk removal does not use postcards effectively, if at all, for the most part.
I've seen one in the last 7 years that I've been, 9 years now, that I've been watching, the marketing and, noticing different junk removal companies. I got 1-800 got junk postcard years and years ago. And I looked at it and I was like, interesting, but, not.
I actually can't think of someone I've chatted with that has done it in junk removal. I've recommended it sometimes to different companies, but I don't think anybody is actually doing it. Very cool. What are you comfortable sharing your average acquisition cost?
We're at, they're a little different across the board.
Of course.
But overall, AJP, we're at $27.
For a call. Really? That's fantastic.
No, for a job completed.
Really? Wow. That's fantastic. That's very cool. And that goes to all those touch points, the postcards, the door hangers, the yard signs, all of that is so powerful.
Right. And you can see where the branding really comes into play. Fire Dogs, has been in Indianapolis for a long time now. And so their branding is extremely strong. So we pay a very small percentage on Google. When I say very small in comparison, and the amount of repeats and word of mouth that we get. I mean, we also run several trucks, there. So there's the trucks running around. Lots of people are saying those are thousands of impressions a day, we're getting. Plus there's just been, tens of thousands of jobs completed there. So the word of mouth is,
And if you're continually reminding them, like you said, with email, that's so powerful. Very cool. That's a really low acquisition cost. That's awesome. I assume you're trying to make it even lower. Otherwise you wouldn't be branching out into TV and different things like that.
Every day.
What's your goal?
Our goal as AJP is to eventually create another liquidity event and sell again. And we're still acquiring. We're still looking for good companies to buy. Several on the radar. 2024, I think, was a down year for just about everyone.
Yeah, interesting year across the board. Yeah,
very interesting year. So we can factor in a whole bunch of different things, but it's very interesting what parts of the country were down, because I had the fortune of seeing several different P&Ls, right? So it's very strange to see what parts of the country were down, what parts were up, and where we are today. Just it's different.
Interesting. You took my question and went in a direction I was actually excited about. My question that I meant to get across was, what is your goal for job cost, like your job acquisition cost?
So we put a little more emphasis on percentage of spend in relation to budget. So my eventual goal is between 5 and 7%, and that's hopefully the reality that we hit.
It's really healthy.
At least by the end of the year, would
Really
be
healthy.
really solid.
That'd be the chef's kiss, right? Your ear roll gratifying there.
The acquisition costs we look at, but really the percentage is what is the most important, because the average job size by the location drastically varies.
Sure.
You can't get
so that's a way to standardize it across every location.
right as a percentage. So whereas paying $60 in acquisition costs in Boston is very easily doable. If you're doing that in Houston, you're treading water, and it's just based on the cost of living. An $800 average job size up there is a relatively easy thing to do.
Really?
In Houston, you're good luck.
Or more around the 250 to 400 probably in Houston, right?
We're actually higher than that. We shoot for 450.
Cool.
So 450 to 500 is relatively healthy.
Yeah, awesome. Now, do you guys get into? Is it just junk removal, or do you any light demo, anything like that, or is that harder to standardize across locations?
We do demolition. We're not actively seeking it.
Okay.
But if it comes in, we do have people that are capable. We just did a massive job in Michigan, massive interior demo in Michigan. But I mean, if it comes in, we're not going to say no. We start with a how can we, not can we. We just go. I don't know if we can do that or not, but we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out as we go. Talk about AI. You had mentioned that before. What are you guys using? How is it changing things for you guys on marketing in the junk removal business in general?
From a marketing perspective, man, AI is changing the landscape of how we search.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, I don't think it's a far-fetched idea to think that in a couple of years' time, our computers aren't even going to have keyboards. We're just going to sit down and we're going to talk to this screen. And this screen is going to learn us. Like, if you've used ChatGPT for long enough, you know that if you type something in, it knows who you are, what you typically search for, and what you're trying to do. Mine gets a little confused because it'll incorporate like fire dogs or Indianapolis with Joseph's junk removal, and it'll try to merge those, and then it'll get confused, and I'll be like, no, we're not talking about that one. But that's how search is changing, and people are going to, like I said, you're going to sit down in front of a computer, and it's going to know you as a person, right? It's going to recognize your face. It's going to know you're sitting there, and it's going to know that you typically sit down between 6 and 7 a.m. and the first thing you do is pull up Gmail. So what's going to happen? You're going to sit down, and it's going to go, oh, hey, Chris, and it's going to pull up your Gmail, right? So I think it's going to, two different things. Personally, one, it's going to be very hard to detach from your habits. Two, when I'm talking to it, the way that I'm trying to find something is going to be very different than the way I type it into Google now.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I'm talking to you, Lewis, and then I say junk removal and I just stare at you, you're going to have no idea what I'm talking about, right? But when I do that to Google, it knows what I'm trying to do, and we know how to manipulate the system, because we'll do junk removal Houston, right? But if I look at you and say that, it's going to sound a little silly. And we're already starting to see it a little bit, and you're starting to see it with the Google answers the overview that's popped up. In that when we talk to how we're searching for something, we're going to say, can you find me a junk removal company in Houston, Texas? Right? That keyword is going to be the keyword, right? Now, I'm sure that Google's like, they've got enough money that they're going to beat the search market to the punch. So you have to figure out how Google's going to structure this. But if you want to, drive your costs down and do things effectively, you're going to have to somehow incorporate that into your website.
100%.
From an organic perspective, right? Yep. Because you can easily do that with Google AdWords now, but you're just going to be driving your cost up. So, I mean, that's how AI is really changing the game. Eventually, I believe that all call centers are just going to be AI generated with one manager who's watching over all of them, right? You're in a couple of them right now. Is like air.com, I think, is one. But like, you can just have a conversation with this thing, and like, it humanizes things for you. We vowed that we're not going to do the AI call center thing. We want real humans talking to real humans. I think there's a benefit in that, and eventually
it's always going to be a value add that you can charge for.
Yeah, talk to a person, press 2.
Being it automatically takes out of your Venmo account. When you
right.
it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't thought about it like that, but interesting. So I think that the national franchises, if they're doing it,
if they're prepping for, AI to completely, I truly think this is the biggest thing since computers.
It's like since the internet for sure.
Yeah. And it's, how that's going to change, like how we do junk removal is not going to, AI really can't affect that. And that's a good thing. It's like being a fireman, robots can't do firefighting activities, right? How do they know what's the difference between a person and a bed? That's going to be very hard to do. And so that job's always going to be there. Just like junk removal, it's always going to be there. Trades especially.
You're going to have tools that assist you in every one of those things. You may have the ability to have increased vision in various circumstances, stuff like that. If you're a firefighter, certainly operations can benefit from AI, but I agree. The personal touch. I mean, we're running into this in the agency space, right? Like we have to stay on top of the tools to make sure we're still offering a competitive service for clients. But then how can we make our customer service and our personal touch that much better and not get lazy and just be like, oh, the tools are doing everything. Let's just go to the beach, because that's where everyone's going to win, is retaining that human connection while increasing service through using tools. Same as we use a skill saw to build a house faster. Everyone complained about, jobs being lost when tools came in, but it made things better when used properly. It also cut off a lot of fingers. So you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the part of the evolution of human nature, right? We a lot of people want to fight it and be like, it's stupid or this or that. And it's like, no, it's like, you take all of our jobs. It's like, no, it's going to create a bunch of different jobs, right? That's all it's going to do. And like, either, lovingly get with the times or, find something else to do. Like it's coming. You can't stop it. Learn how to effectively work with it and use it, I think is the whole goal there. Like driving cars, like people are like, oh, that's stupid, I don't want my car to self-drive. Personally, I wish my car could self-drive. That way I could write stuff down and do tasks on my phone while I'm driving. And that's maybe a bad thing, but
that's kind of the dream as an entrepreneur, right? I would have been up until a few months ago. I actually got to drive in a self-driving car for the first time, and on the screen, it's like my friend took me out in his Tesla, and it's almost like a bad word now to say that. It was just hilarious.
That's 3 weeks ago, yeah.
Right, crazy stuff. But he took me out and he was showing me the feature, and he just took me around town, like hands off the steering wheel, and I could see what it was seeing, and I was like, it's seeing way better than I see. Like it's situational awareness is way better than me as a human, and that's cool. That was like a big leap for me. Before I would have been like, no, heck no, I'm not getting in a speeding death box. But this was it was really interesting, really really cool to see that come together. Now, of course, there's limitations, but there's also limitations with humans, and people kind of tend to overlook that. And they're like, oh, it's awful, and people are dying. Yeah, people die all the time with human-driven cars too.
Yeah, people, they don't want to fly. And I'm like, you have a better chance of dying driving to the airport than you do if getting in the car. My son, speaking of the Teslas, but my son was in Phoenix not too long ago, and he sent me a video. He got picked up in a Tesla that had no driver.
That's that. I don't know. That's the step I haven't taken yet, but crazy, right?
Yeah. I was like, call me if it winds up in the desert somewhere.
Locks the doors and takes you to a warehouse somewhere. Sit there.
Yeah. There's other kidnapping people. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of innovation going on with AI that I think people just need to really just get on board with and learn how to effectively coexist with it. Like, people fought the computer, and look at today, like we couldn't live without them. There's no way. Our whole city
we laugh at our parents for still having flip phones, and yet we're sitting here being like, oh yeah, it's going to take our job. It's like, well, in fact, that's what you preach here. Laugh at a flip phone or go get a flip phone and live in the woods somewhere. That's pretty cool too. So no judgment either way, but just figure out which path you're on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, like I said, get on board or go find something else to do, which is no problem.
Yeah. Well, Chris, this has been fun. I appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate you jumping on, sharing some nuggets, and just adding value through this. Where can people find you and follow what you guys are doing? We will put the links to the 4 companies in the podcast show notes when it goes live. But where's the best place for people to follow what you guys are up to?
Really, check out the social medias. Fire Dogs, Junk Bear, Look Away, Just a Chunk Level. We have them all over the place. Pretty easy to find. Our websites are out there and available. If you want to contact me, LinkedIn, or shoot me an email, chisholm@fire-dogs.com. I have no problem talking to people or helping out or helping resolve situations. I like to be a problem solver. So,
or pointing them toward an acquisition, wherever the case may be, right?
Or if they have a business they think is growing and going, let's talk.
Yeah, I love it. I will say, I was hunting down information for you, and you are a man of many beards. various beard styles on Facebook, on LinkedIn and stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to lock onto the facial parts that I recognize, and then I chase you down on the different platforms. So it's a funny tidbit there. But guys, take a listen. As always, recall what we talked about here. There's some real nuggets here. Email marketing to your existing clients, being out there, building your brand awareness, working on your acquisition costs as a whole. Chris talked about some things that are helping build for very successful companies that were successful in their own right before they came under Allied Junk Partners, and continue to be due to, one piece of it being the work that he's doing on marketing. So there's success leaves clues. Go back. Don't listen to the podcast if you're not going to take action. And we will see you guys next time. Talk soon.